Hey guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm here with a video all about forced proximity romances. Now, if you've noticed, I will do videos just to talk about books I'm obsessed with, and so I am in the middle of one book and finished another book that I just have to talk to you about, and so I made this video to fit those two books. So originally I was like, oh, I want to do a hate to love video, but then I had more to fit forced proximity, and the two books I want to talk about 100% fit forced proximity, so we're going to be talking about that today. That means they are forced to be together. We have a family vacation. We have they have to live together. We have that they're neighbors. We have that they have to work together. We have all the things that would force our couples together, and usually that adds a little bit of attention to them because that means they either have a past they're trying to avoid with that other person, or they really don't like them but they can't escape them and they have to be together like over and over and over again. So that's where we're headed with this video. I'm so excited. I have, I think, 8 books to talk about that are all so good. So we're gonna get to them. The first book I am 30% into, and I have not felt this obsessed with a book in so long, where I'm starting it. I was 15% in and I was like 5 stars. This is gonna be a 5-star read, like zero question about it. I love romantic suspense, and I feel like it's really hard to find really good romantic suspense, and this is doing it for me. And I'm so excited because it's a new to me author, Bourbon and Lies by Victoria Wilder. Like, this is gorgeous. Shout out to Adrienne who got this for me for my birthday. She went to a signing where she was at, and so she got me a bookmark and actually a gorgeous page overlay of the art too, which is stunning. And it's signed to me. And I'm like so freaking out that I have this now because I started this on the treadmill yesterday and I have to read something else for work right now. So this is just my treadmill book because I can't do work stuff on the treadmill. So this is just what I read when I run, and I'm literally contemplating running on my day off to read because this book is romantic suspense. Definitely hate to love. The hero's so grumpy. So the prologue starts out with him losing someone close to him. He was a police officer, something tragic happened, and now it's like 5 years later and he's super grumpy and works on his bourbon thing. I don't know what to call it. They live on a ranch, I think, like a kind of a farm ranch situation going on because he's got a horse, but they like make bourbon. So whatever you want to call that. And he's definitely just a huge grump and he's kind of rude. And the heroine is in witness protection. So something crazy happened to her. We don't know the full extent of what yet, but something happened to her. And the beginning of the actual book after the prologue starts with her being dropped off at this ranch, and the brothers all live there. So the hero is there with like his brothers, and I think he has like 2 or 3 brothers and like different family members, and so one of them's a single dad, and I'm hoping the brothers all get romances, but she has to live like right next to him, and so he's super annoyed. They see each other. He obviously is attracted to her, and he is like, why do I care so much about this woman? He's like asking questions about her and always aware where she is, which makes him even more mad, and they have to constantly be around each other. She has no job. She's just like literally in witness protection on this ranch. He does bourbon stuff. That's all I know. But they're around each other all the time. His nieces invite her to their family dinner, so then she shows up there and he can't escape her. And it is so freaking good. I could go on and on about this book. It's probably going to be my favorite of the month. So pick it up now and don't be me and wait forever to read it. It's so good. And then the next book that I just have to talk about because I just loved it so much is For Better or Hearse. I keep on wanting to say To Have or To Hearse, but it's For Better or Hearse because it's about someone. Okay, it does kind of have to do with weddings, which I'll get to. So this one's by Ava Hunter. I love Ava Hunter so much. Now I've read everything but one book she's written, I believe, and that's her surprise pregnancy one, or slash it's not a surprise, like she is pregnant and falls in love with someone else. So that's on my TBR. But this one I think is the same world as that, and that's her cousin. And in this one, her first job of the book is someone to interrupt weddings, and she's paid to break apart weddings. And she breaks this wedding up, and it's actually the hero's wedding. So fast forward like a year, and now she's a death doula, and she is hired to help people prepare for death. And this sweet old man hires her, and he is trying to have one last family vacation because he's dying of cancer and bring his family back together. And his grandson just happens to be the guy whose wedding she ruined. He hates her guts, but they had so forced proximity, close quarters, because they're all on vacation in Hawaii together. They have to do hiking trips together. They have to stay in the same resort together. They have to go to family dinners together. Like, there is literally no escaping her. And when she shows up, the family recognizes her and they're like, no, absolutely not. And the grandfather is like, too bad, she's here with me. You all have to suck it up. Now, she's such a cool character. She has type 1 diabetes. She is a grumpy black cat, basically. So it's grumpy is the trope of this, because he's definitely very grumpy too. And he is a doctor, but he works on a like oil rig, and he goes against his father's wishes because his father does like plastic surgery. It's just for like rich people. And so he doesn't really like his dad. His dad's disappointed in him. His parents don't really talk, but then his grandfather also wasn't there for his mom growing up. And so like there's a lot of family issues going on, and she's just kind of like thrown in the mix, and it's so good. So much banter in here, hate to love, and on a Hawaiian vacation together. So read this if it sounds interesting, because it's amazing. Okay, then I have a couple other ones that I've read. So if you recently watched my wrap up, this might sound familiar. Close Knit by Kelsey Denise Stone. Again, I'm just talking about books I'm obsessed with, and I hope that's okay, because this book is a knitting influencer and a soccer player. And if you know anything about me, I knit and crochet. I have for a very long time. I actually started a knitting club in college. I was like super into knitting in college, then I kind of got out when I was starting YouTube and teaching, and then now I'm trying to get back into it. I love it. I do some aragumi? The animals, I never had to say that word, but I've been making dragons. Anyways, I loved her character. Daphne is amazing. She is a full-time influencer, and I always am wary about authors writing by influencers, but I feel like they got this so right. She's having her year of yes, where she is just taking opportunities, saying yes, and she moves to London to live in this apartment that a family member owns. And this is one of the only apartments left that's not owned by the soccer team in town. And the hero has transferred to that soccer team. He was on a very toxic, just very gross soccer team. Like, they demeaned their players, they were horrible to them, and the hero has a lot of mental health issues from this team, and he hasn't addressed it though. So he's really struggling on this new team, and they had a one-night stand back in the US months before she moved, and didn't think they'd see each other again, then see each other, and so they are neighbors. They literally live next door to each other, and it is adorable because they literally cannot not be around each other. She comes home, she sees him, she's in like the common lounge area knitting with some of his teammates because they start this project to raise money for someone who works for the team, and she's just everywhere and he cannot avoid her, but then he starts not wanting to avoid her. So it is so good. I got a couple goodies from the authors. They did send me a paperback, and like, look how cute the art is, and I think there's some stickers that I got too that are super cute. So this book was my first book by these authors, and I definitely cannot wait to read more because I loved it. Then I have Homebound by Meredith Trapp. So they used to be best friends, and he's always been in love with her, okay? And he is now a professional hockey player. She actually got engaged, so he was like, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go do my own thing, even though he was heartbroken, and he has a child. He is a single dad. He's a professional hockey player, and I believe like his moms need help. I don't remember why he's back in town, but he's going to live at the house on his mom's property that the heroine is currently living on, and she is a professional bull rider, which is really fun. And she's just such a fun character because she really does whatever she wants, and she has some reservations about being good enough as a bull rider. And so he shows up with his daughter, and they have to live together, and that means like she'll go on dates and like bring her date back, but then she just cares about him and his daughter more than her dates, and so then they just leave, and then she starts to realize that she's falling for him, and he literally is like, it's my time, let's go, I'm gonna win her over. And he like reports back to his teammates about him trying to get the girl because he's loved her his whole life. And I love how he is finally just like, screw it, I am just gonna take the chance and I'm gonna be with her. And so that's really what this is, and they're around each other 24/7 because they live together, and I love that trope. So read Homebound, definitely. Speaking of roommates, we have So Wrong by Abby Millsaps, which is a Why Choose. We only have 2 heroes in this one, but I believe it's going to get up to 4, and the next book I think has 3. I haven't read book 2 yet, and book 3 comes out in December, but this one's Why Choose. We have a pass between 2 of them, and it's a guy and his best friend who are the love interests. So she falls for this guy in high school. We get flashbacks between the past and the present. She leaves for years, and she goes to Europe, and now she's back, and their parents are married. Her and her ex, their parents are married, and they started dating before they even knew their parents knew each other. And so we are flashing back, like I said, between them falling in love as teenagers, and then today where she has to live with him and their best friend. He gets injured in a football accident in college and has to move home, but his mom is like psychotic, so they tell him he can move in with them and they'll take care of him. So the 3 of them are living together, and I feel like it was like guy's room, her room, guy's room, so it was like they were staggered, and things happen. And that's all I can say. This was so addicting. Like, there wasn't a lot of plot to it, and I've said this a lot, I'm very plot driven. I can't love a book if it's character driven, but I did not mind in this one. I was so invested in their characters and how they got into certain situations, and the dual timeline I loved. So I love this book so much, and they had to address things because they were living by each other after things went down in their past. So good. Love this. Cannot wait to read the next one. Then I have a couple, okay, let me get to one and then I'll get to like the more popular ones. So Late Bloomer by Maisie Eddings. This one, they have to live together again. So I feel like forced proximity living together is so good because it's just like, you are definitely more vulnerable at home. And so you have to see someone like in that kind of environment and become more vulnerable with them. But the one heroine's kind of flighty. She never really settled down or knew what she was doing with her life, and she wins the lottery. So she doesn't have close friends, and one of her quote-unquote friends like gives her a lottery ticket, probably because they forgot that it was her birthday, and she wins, and she sees really how people are treating her, and so she ends up buying a flower farm. And it could have very well been a scam. She was very lucky it wasn't a scam because she met this woman at like a food court and like bought the deed from her, and it just so happens that is the mother of the other heroine. This is a sapphic romance. The other heroine works on that farm with a family member, and it is like her heart and soul is this farm. It's her life. And her mom has been very flighty, and she technically owns the farm though when her grandmother passed away. And so she's pissed. She's like, I cannot believe my mom would do that. Like, what do I do? Like, this is my home. Literally her home and her livelihood is this flower farm, and her mom just sold it to this other person. So the other heroine is like, listen, I don't know what I'm doing, so like feel free to stay and like show me the ropes and we'll figure this out. And so it's their romance, and I loved it because the other heroine really got to see what it was like having people who really care for you, and she hasn't really had that a lot in her life, and I just really enjoyed this. And the setting was so fun on a flower farm. Like, I wanted to go buy a flower farm and go live on it. It was so good. So then I also have Fragile Sanctuary by Catherine Cowles. Speaking of romantic suspense, this is one of my absolute favorite books by her. This one, our heroine's family died in a fire when she was young, and so she's adopted by her best friend's family, and she decides to rebuild her family's house, and she has to do it with her brother's grumpy best friend. So he is one of the contractors working on the house. He's like a fire expert and works for her brother's construction company. So they have to be around each other so much, and they don't get off on the right foot. She's visiting the burnt down house, and he immediately yells at her like, what are you doing? This is private property. You're gonna get in trouble. You're gonna get hurt. Like, stop. And she's like, don't you dare talk to me that way. I own this house. And so that's how it starts. He's very grumpy because he is very damaged. It's a Catherine Cowles book, and he used to be an FBI profiler. And there's a serial killer involved in this, and I love when her suspense is about serial killers. So this one I just ate up. I loved it so much, and the hero ended up falling so hard for her. But he was definitely very, very mean in the beginning, and that's just coming from his like grumpy nature, and so it was so good. It was so good. I love this. Please read it. And the last one is one that I put off reading because this author is either I'm obsessed or I really didn't like that book. And so this was my last book to read by her, and I was obsessed. And that is Happy Place by Emily Henry. If you haven't read this yet, please do. If you are like me and you like what I like, I think you would like this. This one does have miscommunication, but it's so angsty. The hero and heroine broke up. And it's definitely a situation of we are so in love, but we can't be together. And that kills me every time. I love that trope. But they have to go on vacation with their best friends and act like they never broke up because they did not tell their best friends that they broke up. So they are going to this like lake house with their best friends, and they're dealing with their own drama too. And they have to act like they're still madly in love and dating. So that is for sure forced proximity. They have to share a room, and they have to be around each other 24/7 on this vacation. And it was great. I loved it. They kind of had to be very awkward together and address really what happened to them, what tore them apart, and it was so good. And like I said, there's definitely miscommunication because they didn't just like, if they sat down and talked things out, there would not be a book. But that's not how people are. Sometimes we avoid conversations because we just don't want to have them, or we're too nervous for them, or too like freaking out about how awkward it's going to be. And so that's what happened in here. I believe we see them like falling in love in the past and then see them now. So it is, I think this was dual timeline if I remember, because I know her dual timeline did not work for me in another book, but this one I really, really loved. So if you like that, please read this. And if you've been hesitant, just know this is one of my favorite Emily Henry books. I loved it. And those are my forced proximity romance recommendations. Let me know what your favorite like micro trope of forced proximity is. Do you love sharing a room? Do you love neighbors? Do you love having to work together? Only one bed is good, but I never remember if there was one bed or not because it's such a small detail. But if you have made it this far, why don't you leave me I think there's a cup of like whiskey, so leave that to me. And I don't know anything about alcohol, so it very well could be bourbon, but for Bourbon and Lies, leave me one of those cups. Let me double check. Yeah, there is. I think it's whiskey, but like I said, I know nothing about alcohol. I don't drink, so leave me that whiskey glass and we'll pretend it's bourbon. And that's all I have. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a good day. Bye.